Helping outside the workplace is usually appreciated, but this is a subject that needs to be broached in confidence with the patient, if at all. It can be an understandably difficult subject for the patient to discuss. If there is a close personal friend who is also a coworker, sometimes it's better to use them as an intermediary to find out the patient's needs and the best way of helping. Remember, in most cases, a patient wants to feel normal, and sometimes receiving help can be a difficult reminder of their inability to, at least temporarily, feel that way. There also may be legal issues that must be dealt with when it comes to distributing medical information in a workplace, and this can be difficult in a work environment where relationships are both personal and professional. To get more specific information, please look at our DVD extras section where we have a discussion by our legal expert as well as links to related web resources. When an employee has completed treatment and is ready to move on, there's still a number of issues to deal with about job security and the ability to do the work. There are usually constant reminders of cancer treatment in their post-treatment life, such as fatigue or malaise, which may last a lot longer than even cancer professionals have realized in the past. When the employee returns to work, the manager needs to recognize that employee's current abilities and skills. To help the employee catch up on any changes that have occurred, offer instructional opportunities such as videos, seminars, or personal mentoring. It's also not unusual for a manager to implement changes in the workplace once a cancer patient returns to work. The manager can assign a parking space that is closer to where the employee works, or have a private area for the person to rest in. And remember, an employee's cancer history should be treated as any other confidential information. This means cancer history does not necessarily need to be shared. Although the long-term effects of cancer treatment and its accompanying stress should be acknowledged, they should not dominate the workplace. The fear of recurrence is an ongoing emotional issue for cancer survivors. Typically, if the workplace has been supportive throughout the employee's battle with cancer, the rewards will be substantial for everyone.
Cancer treatments sometimes have long-term side effects or consequences. Fatigue, for instance, can last much longer than we used to think that it could. We used to tell folks the fatigue will end in 6 months. There's some research now that indicates fatigue can go on much, much longer.
It probably took me a year to really recover physically. I really try and put up a good front. I think my doctors will say that. You know, if anybody asks me how you're doing, I'm going to say fine. That's going to be my first response, and I may feel terrible.
Most people are really happy when treatment is done, and they anticipate moving ahead with their life and really not thinking about cancer anymore. Some people do experience one of the most difficult emotional times after treatment has ended.
For some reason, you think, oh, now what do I do? Before you were seeing somebody almost weekly, depending upon the situation, then you go to, well, going in once every 3 months. I mean, this is a bit frightening. I'm not getting the chemo anymore. Well, gee, this is a little bit frightening. I made it through the chemo, and maybe I need to take something else.
And you really do reach a point where you want to be treated like you're healthy again. You want to feel healthy, and if people treat you like that, then you're more apt to feel that way.
When people ask me how much they should tell a potential employer about their health history, I tell them it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay not to share things about yourself that you don't necessarily want other people to know, especially if you don't know the other person well. It's okay to keep your private business private.
I eventually did change jobs just to kind of broaden my interest and build on the experience that I'd gone through.
Their ability to decide what's most important in their life can change. And that can mean that they're going to be a much better employee than they ever were before. They're not going to stress over unimportant things in the workplace. They're going to be able to recognize what's important and do it.
the things that used to upset me or get me sort of, mad, that's not important anymore.
You dwell on it less. And that's what I tend to tell people that I know who are just coming out of treatment, that as time goes on, you're going to start to feel better and better, and you've got to have that confidence in yourself and in the research that's out there.
I pace myself. I've learned to set priorities and know when to quit pushing my body and take a rest break. And I think that is something that employers need to remember, is just because the treatment plan has been completed doesn't mean that the side effects stop.
I can recall working with a person who was puzzled every year when the dogwoods bloomed, why they began to feel a bit uncomfortable or emotionally distressed. It wasn't overwhelming, but it was puzzling. And we finally were able to sort back through and discover that was the time of year when they had a recurrence. And that was very devastating to them. They handled the first diagnosis very well, felt very confident, but felt pretty betrayed by their body when they had the recurrence. And that turned out to be the important anniversary date for them.
Right after going through treatments and being very sick, of course, every ache and pain I had, I thought I had a metastasis somewhere in my body. But I think now it's just more, it's not a thought that's right out there every day, but it's pretty, it's always something that I'll think about.
I've learned to exercise a lot, to eat as healthy as I possibly can, and just to be very positive, and as I said, not to think about it all the time.
I've been with my company almost 10 years, and I would say the reason that I've stayed there is because of the support that I got 8 years ago. It's made me become a loyal employee to a company where that in my profession there's a lot of job hopping and ladder climbing, and I always remember how well they treated me when I wasn't able to take care of myself.
I would wish that everybody that is working and is diagnosed with cancer and is going through the treatment would have the opportunity to have as much support that I've had. I've had quite a bit of support, which helped me personally and professionally get through this.
Every day is precious. I mean, you once you're diagnosed with cancer, you never look at life like you did before.
You fight like hell, you want to be well, and you want them to continue the research. There's a lot more out there than even when I was first diagnosed, and better treatments and more hope for people.
It's advanced to where you can beat it. You got to go through the ringer, but you can beat it.
Encouraging a cancer patient can rebuild their confidence and abilities once they rejoin the workforce. It's also important when an employee or coworker re-enters the workplace that they not be discriminated against or treated differently. As a manager, you must focus on their skills and abilities as well as their desire to get the job done. There are also a number of legal issues related to the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, that always apply to any employer regarding an employee or job applicant's medical history. The specifics of those and other related information may be reviewed in our DVD Extras section. Although cancer detection and treatments have improved considerably over the last few decades, the reality still exists, unfortunately, that some people will die despite cancer treatment. Cancer can often be a chronic condition that an employee endures, and that can affect the workplace for a period of time as short as a few weeks or for as long as a few years. Losing a friend and coworker not only affects the person's loved ones, but also that person's work family, people whom they saw day in and day out in the workplace. This last chapter is about two people who fought courageous battles with cancer and how those closest to them made it through their losses personally and professionally.